Welcome to Rooted in the Real World. In a world that never slows down, we are all suffering from digital fatigue and can feel less than human. We need to be reminded of those timeless principles from real life. So we uncover the unexpected wisdom hidden in real world environments, bringing fresh, multidisciplinary perspectives into the business world. Each episode features a documentary-style clip that showcases a different real-world situation. So let's get back to being human. Let's get rooted in the real world. In this episode of Rooted in the Real World, we have the pleasure of visiting a Christmas tree farm. What can we learn from a Christmas tree farm? Well, joining me today is Sarah Frick. She is the VP of Global Enablement at RingCentral to unpack this topic.
Great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Happy holidays. I talk about a good time to show up and watch this type of video around Christmas time. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And also just a good time to recap the year and what's work, what's not work, and where we're going.
Love it. So let's just take a few minutes to watch this clip.
This one actually has two that are competing. This one here and this one competing to be the leader already. So generally what we would do with this one, because this is sick, we would go back to the base of this, cut out the sick leader, and then just establish the straightest, most central looking branch as the new leader. You would cut the other round of growth, you cut lower than the leader. The leader is always the highest one. And then the others get cut about halfway down from the main leader. So we would let him go. We would trim him back and then trim everything else back around it and just kind of see if it does well, see if it thrives.
That's a great example right there.
Yeah.
A dead leader.
Yeah, a dead leader. And I don't know how this tree will respond.
Right.
It's never best to have to cut the leader out and try to replace it with another one.
Right.
That is, again, it's not that it can't recover, but it's not naturally what the tree was growing to do. So here we go. Here's a double leader. Okay. So this one started all the way back here. And so this is one we should have caught much earlier. One of these actually doesn't look great. It looks like there's a wound on the one that's trying to be the leader. You can usually see one of them is going to be thicker and stronger and straighter and generally more centrally located. And the other one is just trying to creep up like right alongside of him and kind of pretend to be the central leader. So this we would cut all the way back as far as we can get our snips in. Cut that back. We would cut this leader back. Just kind of start to reshape the whole tree into what it was supposed to be when it should have been trimmed a year ago. And that one will probably be fine. If we take that out, barring any fungus or sickness, this tree will probably recover fine because the main leader still looks strong and straight and centrally located.
Well, Sarah, as we've worked before in past projects and sales leadership projects, I've always admired your leadership and how you've led your teams and how you've led programs and projects and all of that. And so that's why, when I had a chance to go out to the Holcomb Farms, the Christmas tree farm, and hear some of the principles that the real world provides, I was just thinking about you, and I'm thinking about your perspective on that, because I'd be curious just to know, as you think about what you just saw relative to, double leaders, some of these sick branches, the things that you have to do to kind of maintain and bring things back to health. I'd just be curious to know your reactions to what you saw and how that applies to the world you're living in.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I didn't know how ruthless Christmas trees could be to one another. But that kind of applies, right? There's lots of different types of leaders. And what I've found really interesting as I've done leadership development programs over the years is that self-realization moment where there's a leader who knows I have a gap in this area, so I hire this on my team. Or there's a leader that realizes he or she has met what they can do at that particular organization, and it's time to let somebody else take the reins.
Yeah.
I love leadership and kind of that dual, like, who's going to win. I also thought it was so interesting how Christmas tree farmers can actually manipulate to make sure that the leader continues to grow. And if you think of a lot of startup leaders or founders, oftentimes they have to do that. They have to say, I hired the CRO, I made a bad decision. I got to pluck him out and put the right person in so that I keep my company continuing to grow.
Right.
So it's funny that like ruthless, I have to move my puzzle pieces to make sure they all fit to where we need to get to, really happens in leadership, but you're dealing with people. So I think it's a little bit harder than a Christmas tree.
You're exactly right. You're talking about like sometimes you have to establish that new leader, and the video talked about the importance of trimming around the central leader to help it thrive, and then in your experience, how do you create the right environment, the right culture where say you're a newly appointed leader can succeed without unnecessary competition or distraction coming from the outside?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost to me is giving that new leader time to do a listening tour. Super
Hmm.
important that you spend the time understanding what's worked and what's not worked, versus just taking lift and shift, which you did at a previous company. So oftentimes, especially if it's a founder-led company, a lot of times what I see is the founders like, okay, Mark, like get in there, let's make sales this quarter,
Yeah.
right? You have to understand that it is part of a long-term game because you are dealing with humans. The other piece is surrounding that leader with the right support system, right? So you can't have a totally new frontline manager bench and a totally new sales leader and a totally new ops leader and a totally new enablement leader, right? Maybe all of those teams have to evolve over time, but it's creating the right structure and foundation so we can get to here to the build over the period of time.
Yeah, I love the fact that you called out we're humans, because in this age of technology and the acceleration of that, whether it's AI or machine learning, whatever it is, we can quickly fall into this trap that we're just automatrons, just robots, and the fact that we're not just humans dealing with humans, and that's really the impotence for why we wanted to do this type of a podcast where we're learning about things that are happening in the real world apply to us as humans in the B2B world. And so I'm just curious, have you ever had to make a difficult decision to remove somebody from leadership, for kind of the greater good, the greater health of the organization? And if so, what was that like? What did you learn from that process?
Yeah. So obviously, from the enablement lens, I get to see a lot of different types of leaders and a lot of different points of their leadership career.
Hmm.
We developed a program called Leader, which was essentially how do we think about right the different parts of what is a leader in the organization, which had management as part of it, but is a bigger component. And then we developed a program that allowed leaders to move through. So the reason I bring that up is you have to realize you're dealing with people who mature at different rates. You asked the question of how we had to remove somebody from leadership.
Hmm. Hmm.
Through that program, we were able to identify someone is a manager, not a leader,
Yeah.
and they might need to go into more of a transactional business, as an example. And that was okay. That worked for them as a human, right? Versus
Yeah.
another human maybe was in a transactional business role in a small business and could be more of an enterprise leader because they had certain leadership skills.
Yeah.
So it was almost like we helped them define what their human brand was and then could apply that brand based on what the company needed. But I think a lot of companies go on, here's what I need as a company, and don't look at who are the humans behind that. They just kind of slot them in without thinking about that particular person and what they can do and can the amount of change they're adapt to handling.
Yeah. Talk to me about the idea of managing versus leadership, right? Sometimes we think that's synonymous, but what are the attributes, the qualities, if you will, the competencies that you look for and you say, okay, this manager, this person can actually grow into a leader? What is it that you're looking for?
I mean, Mark, this is your expertise area for sure. That said, I've had a lot of experience in people who are really good managers. Like they've
Mhm.
moved up through the ranks at the company. They know the ins and outs. They know how much pipeline you need to convert to X to manage each stage of the process. But they don't have leadership, as in they're not looking at pipeline from a quantity, quality, balance, and velocity, the growth engine. They're looking at it as do I have enough to make my actual commit, right? Managing is the day to day, the things that you have to do. Leadership is the thinking outside of the box, getting us to the next level, thinking about development of the talent under you, and constantly thinking of how can I use my different players in the most optimal way.
Yeah.
I think about that from an enablement lens. A lot of times, as you grow out an enablement org, right, you have people who have to wear a lot of different hats, but it's important to get them specialization in a specific area. So I'm a big fan of doing dedicated to leadership with an enablement lens, but then being a coach that could be used across my team in different ways, that allows you to scale where you need to scale because you only have so many humans, but also doesn't hinder you in only having people that are transactional in nature.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, hit the nail right on the head. In fact, there's a great book called Work of Leaders that I've read, and definitely recommend anyone check that out. But the premise and the big idea is that leaders, their job is really to build a bridge between their vision, their strategy, and then execution. So a leader understands the long-term vision, the why behind where you're going. They're able to clarify that and articulate that in such a way that it leads to strategy, and having bifocal vision from a long-term strategy, but then build a bridge to near-term execution and be able to keep everybody on task for the reasons important. Whereas managers, yeah, you're right. It's about kind of the here and now, the operationalize, how do I operationalize that, reporting on that, how much you got, when's it going to close type of mindset. But yeah, definitely hit the
Both
nail on the head.
important. Like you got to be able to execute in current quarter and think about the next two quarters. But that's what makes really well-rounded humans that you want as part of your team is when they're a manager and a leader.
For real, for real. One of the things that I learned in that video, in that clip of visiting that Christmas tree farm, is just the amount of time that they take to care for those trees.
Yeah, I
The,
had
the
no
health.
idea.
They're so finicky. My goodness. It's like,
And
but
now it's funny, I looked at our Christmas tree we got a week ago, and it has two leaders at the top.
oh, interesting.
Uh-huh.
So do you have two angels sitting at the top?
We didn't
Compete?
do two angels, but we just kind of picked one and like cut the
Okay,
other one down a little bit. But interesting how, Christmas tree farming is obviously, I'm sure we have the organic,
right,
beautiful farms that they make everything perfect. And then there's the mass produced because that's the world we live in.
right.
Sounds like I got a mass produced one. I got one that also had a bird's nest in it. So I don't know. I
Oh,
wonder how that factors into the leader.
oh, it came with a little ornament. That's fun.
I was a little upset though because some bird in the world is displaced.
True that. True
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Uh, one of
Such a
the things, yeah, one of the things in the, in my visit to the farm is just the care that they take in maintaining the health of their trees, like the rows and how far apart the trees are and what they're doing around the tree to, keep the weeds down and but keeping it organic so they're not using a lot of chemicals and just keeping everything healthy, and which applies in our situation in leading teams as you are in keeping a healthy culture, healthy organization. Because you and I have talked about this before, that a lot of times your greatest differentiation is not the product that you sell or your engagement strategy or all the great content and content training tools. It's the people, and building a healthy culture for the people is sometimes the greatest differentiator. So companies with a better culture will outperform and out execute companies that have a better product. So what are some maybe tips, tricks, best practices, if you will, that you do to regularly trim and maintain your leaders, your managers, to ensure a healthy culture?
I'm gonna start phrasing it to them that I'm maintaining you, I'm trimming you
Yeah,
for next year. No, I'm just kidding. But in all seriousness, it's so funny because to your point, I've seen high performing teams where their leaders left and we replaced, and all of a sudden that's the lowest team on the totem
yeah.
pole. Because culture means a lot, knowing your people, listening to your people. So the philosophy we've imparted is one, we've got a leadership development program that stands on its own. It's not part of the general enablement. It's only meant for managers. And we have a 101 program that's kind of our leaders in training. We call them team leads that we're investing in as our bench of talent. Then you've got 201, which is all around frontline managers that are transactional managers, which is
Mhm.
really heavy on thought on leadership. And we bring in members from our cross-functional partners to talk through how they've developed as a marketing leader, as an engineering leader, letting them know that leadership is not a sales thing. Leadership is leadership.
Right.
And then 301 is our group of senior leaders that just gets together to, I say, hey, I had a difficult conversation with Mark, and I really just need to talk through how this went and how I could have done it better.
Right.
And it really is just a thought leader group that they bring things that are working and not working. And I'm a facilitator there. I'm not a content expert because I can't know everything they go through day to day, but I give them the opportunity that if somebody's gone through it before, so they don't have to repeat either the same mistake or they have other tools in their tool bag that they can do so. So I think leadership enablement, you really have to break it into those areas because your emerging leaders, they need the playbook, if you will, right? Your leaders in seat typically are going to default to management because that's what they have to get done. Like to hit their numbers, they got to do the management. So you have to find space for them to think about what is leadership and how do I want to embody that and give them a topic. I'm an enabler, right? So I break down complex things. So how do
Yeah.
I bring one topic to Mark and say, let's just focus on pipeline health and asking coaching questions instead of telling the team how to do it. Instead of telling them how that report reads, to walking them through and getting them to think through it on their own, which is a really big part of us growing to the next level.
That's fantastic. Great tips, good best practices when it comes down to really taking time to step back and get what we call the thinking time,
Yep.
slow down to speed up kind of concept. And then along with, as leaders need to be great coaches, right? And we demonstrate our coaching ability not by the statements we make but by the questions we ask. So I love the fact that you brought that up. With as we draw this time to a close, maybe just one lasting big idea that you might have just as you watch that video, me walking around a Christmas tree farm, just any last parting insight that you could leave with the team relative to how we can maybe apply what we just saw and have that insight take root in our own organizations and teams that we work with.
I mean, if you think about that video, it all started with a seed, right?
Yeah.
It started with something that then grew over time. So I'd say be patient with yourself. Leadership is not something that's born overnight, and you're going to have folks that are at different tenures of their leadership frame. But my big idea is invest in leadership development, right? Whether it's L&D, whether it's enablement, whether it's a playbook that you bring someone in to help and develop and you keep alive with your leadership team. There's lots of ways you can do it. That's dependent on where your org is and what you need. But having a focus on leadership development in your organization is the most important thing you can do. And it's not AI and it's not sexy new things. You're never going to be able to AI a development conversation because
Yeah.
I can promise you that would go sideways. You can AI role playing and you can AI even the content development, but you can't AIify the fact that a human needs to have a conversation with another human, typically about hard shit. Like it
Right.
is something that you need them to change to get to the next level of their abilities. And so investing in leadership is never a bad thing, and it's not something that's going to be automated over the coming years.
Love it. You couldn't have said it better myself. So the idea of being patient, seeds take time to grow, invest in the right way. Don't take shortcuts. And that's like why we wanted to do this style of conversation, which is we're thinking about reacting to real things in the real world that matter to us as humans, because it does matter in this age that we're living in. So we want to be grounded. We want to be rooted in the real world. So I appreciate you taking the time to come up and to have this conversation about being rooted in the real world as it applies to leadership. So thank you.
Absolutely, and happy holidays.
Likewise. Take care, Sarah.